snatch it back and hold it, baby, one more time.
I was on the IKMultimedia Forum the other day, and they were discussing how difficult it was to control the vibrato chorus switch on the Jazz Amp 120. And I couldn't replicate the problem, but I did get me thinking about, well, I usually create a foot pedal or a MIDI touch panel for controlling that kind of thing. And I thought, well, I'll just set that up. And it turned out it wasn't so easy. So let's take a look at what happened and what the solution is. The original problem was the poster couldn't get this knob to change. With a little guidance from another member, they realized they needed to move the mouse vertically, and in their case, to the top and bottom of their screen. On my Mac, I do have to move a little bit, but I'm still inside the graphic for the amp when it changes to both the vibrato setting when I move down and the chorus setting when I move up. If you need to move between these while playing, it can be problematic to pick up the mouse, which is why I tend to program a MIDI controller or pedal for changes. In this case, though, things didn't work how I expected. If you assign a MIDI shortcut via the gear chain view using a toggle switch, you can only toggle between vibrato and chorus. You can't reach the off setting. My go-to solution when this happens for three-way toggles is to go into the settings and go to the control change preset, then use the add button. In this case, it's an amp control, so select the amp of interest. And now just pick the chorus control and learn a different button. Uh-oh, turns out there is no setting for chorus, just vibrato. I have no idea why this is missing, but there is a geeky workaround. First, I did a little experimenting, and I found out that turning on vibrato required a data value in approximately the 0 to 60 range. Turning the three-way to off required a value in the 61 to 126 range. Turning the chorus on required exactly 127, the maximum value. This strikes me as another odd decision. It would have worked better for me if the range of values had just been divided in thirds, but that's how it is. Now, if you have an expression pedal that reliably will give you 127, just assign that to this switch and all will be good. Well, as long as you don't mind using an expression pedal to toggle a three-way switch. My problem is even with a curve setting of 1, I can only reliably get 125. Sometimes I get lucky and 127 goes out as the value, and then it works, but it's very unreliable. In an earlier video on MIDI, I talked about the Latch column and how it works, and that is where our solution lies. Something I never thought about until now is that the presets seem to get processed in a top-down order, so the last thing in the list will win. We can use this fact along with the Latch for a solution. If you didn't see the other video, Latch causes the value to only change every other press of the button. If we use two assignments for this single parameter, one with a latch and one without, we can toggle between three values. First, we add another parameter for the same amp effect. Then click Learn and hit the same foot switch or MIDI controller button. We are going to have 4 toggle steps, but only 3 states since we are controlling a single parameter. This is a little confusing, but once we understand what is happening, we can set this up for the repeated value to be whatever we find convenient. I like to make it seem like the real world where you would go from vibrato to off, to chorus, back to off, and back to vibrato. In our first parameters, we changed the min value to 60%. Which, when we send 0 from MIDI, AT will change that to 60% of the scale, which is the off value. When a 127 comes in from the pedal, we can set that to anything because it's never going to do anything. To remind myself of that, I like to use the NA not applicable value here. In the new control, we want to do the full range from 0, which is the vibrato setting, to 100% or 127, the chorus setting. And in this case, we want to turn the latch on. For the sake of discussion and understanding, let's assume the first click of the pedal or pad sends out a 0. This means our first parameter will trigger and set the pedal to off. The second click will both send out the NA value, but it will also satisfy the latch, and the 0% or vibrato setting will go out. Even if we hadn't used this NA, this second value would win out. At least that's what my experiments showed. The next click will trigger the first parameter back to 60% or the off state, but it's also going to arm the latch state. So the click after that will trigger NA, but with the latch armed, this is going to trigger on the second time and the 100% chorus setting will go out. Then the sequence just starts all over again. Looking at the grid, you just need to set the first parameter up with the latch off and the second parameter with the latch on, and then put the first value you want in this slot. The second value you want directly below it here. The third value will be the same as the first, and the fourth value will be this value. If you wanted to cycle from chorus to off to chorus to vibrato, just change the unlatched min value to 100% and the latched max value to between 60 and 99%. My hope is that this technique will prove to be generally useful anytime a three-way switch doesn't have separate parameters that you can control. Thanks for watching. Rock in peace.